delivered 2 papers.
Reserve Bank of New Zealand, Monetary Policy Statement, February 2026. Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, Strategic Intentions 2025-26 to 2029-30.
Those papers are published under the authority of the House. No select committee reports have been delivered. No bills have been introduced. The House comes to questions. Oral question number 1 in the name of the Honourable Carmel Cipollone.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister for Pacific Peoples, does he agree with Christopher Luxon's statement about Pasifika, quote, "We're going to make sure we deliver for them," end quote? If so, why?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Mark Mitchell.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister for Pacific Peoples, yes, the Prime Minister is absolutely right that we must deliver for Pacific Peoples. We know Pacific unemployment is unacceptably high. The government is working incredibly hard to fix the basics, rebuild the economy and improve the situation for all New Zealanders. The Te Lawa Scholarships Program will see hundreds of secondary students supported through strong education to employment pathways in high-growth industries and skilled careers. The Pacific Business Trust has created hundreds of new jobs. Tupu Aotearoa is transitioning to MSD to provide better, more streamlined support and access. Aluwaka has provided targeted support to over 1,200 individuals and supported more than 300 individuals into better employment. This government invested $35.9 million in Pacific housing projects. The Al Whare Al Whale initiative provides for up to 300 homes through an investment of $114.6 million across 3 years. The cost of living crisis and inflation hits our most vulnerable communities the hardest. Clearly there is more work to be done. But we should not forget that the government that left us inflation and a struggling economy is the same government that was going to end child poverty.
That's enough. Carmel Cipollone.
Did that promise to deliver for Pasifika include delivering a Pasifika unemployment rate of 12.3%, more than double what it was when he came into office?
Well, Mr Speaker, the government has several specific initiatives that support Pacific young people to pursue qualifications and careers in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. For example, the Te Lawa Scholarships Program will see hundreds of secondary students supported through strong education to employment pathways in high-growth industries and skilled careers where Pacific representation has historically been low.
Supplementary. Did that promise to deliver for Pasifika include delivering a Pasifika unemployment rate more than twice that of the general unemployment rate?
Well, Mr Speaker, through the Pacific Business Trust, the government is actively supporting job creation by enabling the growth and sustainability of Pacific-owned businesses and enterprises. In recent years, the Pacific Business Trust model has created hundreds of new jobs.
Supplementary. Did that promise to deliver for Pasifika include an additional 13,000 Pasifika people unemployed on his watch?
Mr Speaker, I'd point out and I want to acknowledge the hard work that the previous member did in the previous government in terms of trying to deal with both Pacifica poverty and unemployment. But I'd point out to her that both of those rose under the previous government. We inherited an economy that was in a serious slump. We're working hard to make sure that we deal with those issues. We recognise that they're important, that they are serious, and we're taking it seriously.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
In the Treasury forecast for the outgoing years of the budget 2023, are those not the exact figures of the Treasury forecast?
Yes, they are.
So I'd have to check on the numbers. What I understand is that the previous government's unemployment forecast had us above where we currently are. So we are making good progress on unemployment, but we know there's a lot more work to do.
Did that promise to deliver for Pasifika include delivering for the 1 in 4 Pasifika youth that are now unemployed because of his government's decisions?
Well, these government's decisions are purely based on recovering an economy that was handed to us in a terrible state and slump. It was awful, and we have been working hard and are very focused as a government to create the economic conditions that we can start to help not just our Pacifica youth, but all youth in New Zealand.
How can Pasifika people trust that he has their back when all his government has delivered them is the rising cost of living, fewer jobs, and the worst Pasifika unemployment rate in more than a decade?
Well, Mr Speaker, I've outlined all the initiatives this government is currently undertaking in terms of having to deal with what is a really serious issue that we acknowledge, and that is Pasifika unemployment. And all I'd say is that that this government doesn't just care about our Pasifika youth, we care about all of our youth. And the reality of it is, well, the member might laugh, but the member might think this is funny, but this is a really serious matter. Oh, she thinks the minister is a joke. Well, I'll tell you what the joke is. The joke is that we had a previous government that stated that they wanted to get rid of child poverty, and instead it became worse, whilst at the same time throwing billions of dollars at it with nothing to show. And as an incoming government, we now have had to clean that mess up so that we can start looking after our young people and we can give them a future to look forward to.
Oil and gas.
Question number 2, the Honourable Julianne Genter.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Does she stand by her statement, quote, "As Finance Minister, I take responsibility for managing our government's books. I am the ministerial colleague who takes pride in scrutinising the dollars, in reading through the business cases, and having the courage to say no when proposals don't stack up."
The Honourable Nicola Willis.
Mr Speaker, yes, and I note that my full statement went on to say that I also take pride in saying yes to innovations and partnerships that enhance the financial discipline and reliable delivery of vital public infrastructure.
Will she be re-evaluating her government's infrastructure priorities, especially the roads of national significance, given that the 17 roads the National Party campaigned on were estimated to cost $17 billion, are now understood to cost $56 billion. That's $56,000 million, more than a 300% increase on what the government thought they would be.
Well, Mr Speaker, as the member should know, as a former Associate Minister of Transport, the RONZ projects have gone through the NZTA investment case process, and they have been considered and approved by the board. That process is rigorous, and each investment case includes a high-level assessment of potential alternate funding and financing opportunities. All roads of national significant projects have demonstrated they are value for money in the context of the problems they are trying to solve. NZTA has followed the latest Treasury guidance on calculating the benefit cost ratios of all of the road of national significance projects, and I am happy to confirm for the member that all road of national significance projects have positive benefit cost ratios.
Had she seen the full business case for a second Mount Victoria tunnel before campaigning for it and committing to it as a priority project?
Again, Mr Speaker, as the member should know, as a former Associate Minister of Transport, the investment case process is governed by the New Zealand Transport Authority Board. And when I was campaigning for that, I knew that, and I knew that they would take it through a rigorous process, which they have, and they have found that that investment case stacks up and that it has a positive BCR.
Is she aware that the full investment case published for the State Highway 1 Wellington Improvements projects has a range of benefit cost ratio, and it could be as low as 0.6. And if so, that represents a hugely significant loss. Does she think that project stacks up? And if so, why?
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm aware of a couple of things. The first is that we are still in the early stage in terms of the investment case, and in terms of the overall cost envelope that has been put forward, that includes significant contingency, more than $1 billion worth of contingency in that cost envelope, which reflects NZTA's learning under the last government that putting forward low numbers that then blow out again and again and again, as was the case with the so-called shovel-ready projects, is not a good way to go about planning infrastructure. So they have put a significant amount of contingency in that envelope, which of course does affect the BCR and could mean the BCR could go higher. I'm also aware that to get to the low number that the member is using, you would have to exclude wider economic benefits. It is the case that Wellingtonians will benefit from having a better connected city, less time spent in traffic, more time being productive.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does the Minister consider that while bureaucrats can conjure up positive benefit-cost ratios for many ideas, when faced with limited finances and a pragmatic person would choose to fix pipes over buildings, new cycle lanes?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if only the former Wellington City Council had had the foresight of that minister.
Supplementary.
You've got 5%.
Supplementary question, Julianne. The Honourable Julianne.
Point of order. Apologies, Mr. Speaker, if I'm mistaken, but I'm not sure how the supplementary question relates to the primary and whether the Finance Minister has responsibility.
Well, with all due respect, a number of at least two of the members' supplementary so far have been quite tangential to the intention of the primary question. Do you have another supplementary?
Yes. Supplementary.
We go side to side. We go. Yeah.
She didn't get up for the question, or supplementary question, and now she wants to jump the order again. These people should learn what the processes are here.
Yeah, this just, Mr. Peters, I called her for a supplementary. She made a point of order. I'm now calling her for a supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does she agree with the Infrastructure Commission that too often projects are announced without going through a proper planning process and maintenance gets routinely deferred in favour of the new and shiny, especially given the multi-billion-dollar funding gaps our land transport system is projected to face?
Well, Mr. Speaker, yes, I do agree with the Infrastructure Commission, which is one of the reasons why I'm so proud to sit next to Minister Simeon Brown, who on becoming the Minister of Transport kicked off the pothole remediation plan necessary due to the lack of road maintenance that occurred on her watch.
Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does the Minister consider courageous to carry on with a $4 billion cost blowout in a simple ferry and wharf replacement project, or was it courageous to stop it, fix it and save the taxpayer $2.3 billion?
Green policy.
Indeed, Minister, and I would also reflect that sometimes those in glass houses should not be throwing stones or sitting next to Tamitha Paul, who built cycleways instead of fixing the pipes.
I'm going to... Consistent with the ruling of earlier in the day, the Honourable Nicola Willis will withdraw the last part of that answer.
I withdraw.
Yeah. Supplementary.
Supplementary. Supplementary, Julianne Genter, and no one speaks while questions are being asked.
How will the minister explain to provincial communities around the country whose roads are in desperate need of investment that her government is going to be building the most expensive road by far ever built in this country for less than 2 kilometres of one car lane in each direction in central Wellington, when across Aotearoa we are being hit by flooding and severe weather events that will mean thousands of kilometres of roads need to be improved?
Just a question. Sorry. Just concise that down to a question without the statements around it.
How will she explain to provincial New Zealand that her government is prioritising $3.8 billion on less than 2 kilometres of one car lane in each direction in our capital city when we could be improving thousands of kilometres of roads in provincial areas?
No.
question was longer than the road.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not a case of either or, it's a case of both. And I would point out to New Zealanders who share my concern about the resilience of our transport network that NZTA has a multi-$100 million program of resilience works underway across the country to improve the resilience of our roads to increasing climatic events, including flooding and landslides. That work is vital. It must continue, and our government will continue to ensure there is the funding available to support it.
Okay, does she understand that multi-$100 million is significantly less than $3.8 billion, and that by prioritising the Mount Vic Tunnel, which has a BCR of less than 1, she is robbing the rest of the country of hundreds of millions of dollars she could be spending?
The question is ruled out. We move to question number 3, the Honourable Dr Aisha Verrall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health. Does he still believe that supporting locally trained nurses...
Just a moment. We will have quiet while a question is asked. I'll call again Dr Aisha Verrall to start the question over.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health and asks, does he still believe that supporting locally trained nurses is key to growing the health system's nursing workforce? If not, why not?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable
Samia. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, just you're quite unrecognisable at times.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supporting locally trained nurses is an important part of our focus on building a healthcare system that has patients at its centre, and that is why our government is delivering this for patients. Since September 2023, nursing vacancy rates have reduced from 9.5% to 3.6%. Nursing turnover rates have reduced from 13.3% to 8.1%. And around 2,000 additional nurses have joined Health New Zealand. This has not happened by accident. Our government has delivered. 1,430 graduate nurses have been employed by Health New Zealand this financial year to date, tracking well against a plan to hire 1,800, meaning over 80% of the total cohort are expected to secure hospital-based roles. We've also funded 120 places for nurses to train as nurse practitioners in primary care this year, and funded up to 400 graduate nurses per year taken on by primary and community care employers. More nurses trained here in New Zealand delivering frontline care for New Zealand patients. That is what our government is focused on.
Supplementary. Why in Christchurch, where a lack of nurses led to staff rationing the amount of care they could give to patients, did his government slash the number of graduate nurses employed from 84 to 28%?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said, Health New Zealand is making significant progress in strengthening our nursing workforce. Since September 2023, nursing vacancy rates have reduced from 9.5% to 3.6%. And this year, we have hired so far 1,430 graduate nurses placed by Health New Zealand, tracking well against a plan to hire 1,800. And those positions are being filled in districts across this country. Our government's position is very clear. Vacancy rates are down, retention rates are up, and around 2,000 more nurses are working at Health New Zealand since we came to government. We're making good progress.
Well done. Supplementary. Why did 340 nursing graduates miss out on jobs at Christchurch Hospital, where patients who are nil by mouth, gowned and minutes away from surgery have their operations cancelled due to lack of staff?
Well, Mr. Speaker, our government is making good progress in recruiting the nursing staff that New Zealand needs across New Zealand in districts up and down this country. And as I said, we have seen nursing vacancy rates drop from 9.5% under her watch to 3.6% today. Nursing turnover rates have reduced from 13.3% to 8.1%. We are seeing progress. There's more work to do, and we're continuing to do that.
Supplementary. Why did his government slash the proportion of graduate nurses hired in Tauranga, where Chantal went to the emergency department with shortness of breath and waited 11 hours to be seen?
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we are hiring around 1,800 graduate nurses this year. It's a significant intake of nurses in districts up and down our country. In every district across our country will be hiring nurses, meaning approximately 80% of the total cohort are expected to secure hospital-based roles. And Mr. Speaker, we're also making wider progress with nursing vacancy rates having reduced from 9.5% to 3.6%. The reality is the facts speak to significant work and significant progress being made under this government to strengthen our nursing workforce.
Supplementary. How can New Zealanders know they'll get the care they need when locally trained nurses are in the dole queue or the immigration queue?
Mr. Speaker, when that member was the Minister of Health, nursing turnover rates were 13.3%. It's now down to 8.1%. Our government vacancy rates are down, retention rates are up. Around 2,000 more nurses are working at Health New Zealand today since we came to government. We're funding graduate placements, training nurse practitioners, growing the primary and community healthcare workforce. We're getting on with the job.
Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Asher-Field.
Mr. Speaker, that set of questions are all related to the primary, which was about opportunities for graduate nurses. All of the Minister's answers related to nurses who are already lucky enough to be in the health system. I wonder if Mr. Speaker, you'd consider directing the Minister to actually answer the question about why so many graduate nurses are missing out of jobs in our health system.
Speak to the point of order.
While I'm not responsible for the Minister's answers, I would have thought that if the Minister is talking about a reducing percentage of turnover, that would indicate there are more people working in the system. And that's what he said. I heard him say 2,000 extra nurses. I'm not going to ask him to do it again. You have another sub? Ryan Hamilton, question number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, what recent reports has she seen on the economy?
The Honourable Nicola Willis.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Reserve Bank released its latest monetary policy statement. This included the bank's decision to keep the official cash rate at 2.25%. The Reserve Bank's forward track implies that this is likely to be the bottom of the easing cycle in terms of OCR reductions, but it also indicated that monetary policy is likely to remain accommodative for some time, with low interest rates continuing to provide stimulus to the economy.
Thank goodness. Supplementary. What does the Reserve Bank say about the current performance of the economy?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Reserve Bank says that economic activity began recovering over the second half of last year in response to strong export prices and lower interest rates, although it does note the volatility in recent measured GDP data. It says that stronger activity has been observed in the rural economy and in the primary sector, and says there are signs the recovery is broadening across the economy. It notes that residential and business investment is increasing, but that households remain cautious for now in their spending. The Reserve Bank's forecast is for GDP growth of 0.5% in the December quarter.
What does the Reserve Bank say about the economic outlook?
Mr. Speaker, the Reserve Bank says the economy is at an early stage in its recovery. It expects growth to continue throughout 2026 and 2027, with increases in business and residential investment, growth in household consumption, and a decline in government spending as a share of the economy. Economic activity is expected to support growth and employment. The Reserve Bank thinks the unemployment rate peaked in the December quarter last year and will gradually decline from here on. I agree with what the Reserve Bank Governor said on Mike Hosking this morning, quote, "There is a lot of good potential in this economy."
What does the Reserve Bank say about the outlook for inflation?
Well, Mr. Speaker, annual CPI inflation in the December quarter was slightly above the 1 to 3% target band. However, the Reserve Bank expects inflation to be within the band this quarter, then converge to near the 2% midpoint as some one-off increases drop out of the annual calculation, and as tradable inflation declines and domestic price pressures moderate. 2% annual CPI inflation has been the midpoint of the target band for almost 25 years, as successive governments have pursued the goal of low, stable inflation.
Supplementary. How often in New Zealand's history has annual CPI inflation been negative?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's worth pointing out in the context of recent debate in this House that price decreases would correspond with negative inflation. Over the past 90 years, so that's 360 quarters in total, annual CPI inflation has been negative for only 4 of those quarters. Governments never aim for negative inflation, which is when prices overall are falling, because that can be very harmful to the economy. Because when prices are falling, people hold off spending and investing to wait for lower prices, so economic activity seizes up, and you get into what is termed a deflationary spiral, very harmful for people. Instead, governments aim for positive, low, stable inflation. And it is tragic when they fail to achieve that, because big price increases do get baked in. For example, when inflation in successive quarters was 6.9%, 7.3%, 7.2%, 7.2%, 6.7% and 6%, as it was in 2022 and 2023 under the previous government.
Question number 5, the Honourable Kieran McAnulty.
Thank you, sir. To the Minister of Housing. Does he stand by all his statements and actions?
The Honourable Nicola Willis.
On behalf of the Minister of Housing, yes, in the context in which they were given.
Supplementary. How will issuing move-on orders, moving homeless people from the CBD to other areas, assist the housing situation in Auckland?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are doing a lot as a government to assist the housing situation in Auckland. In particular, we have contracts with the Auckland City Mission and a number of other housing providers to ensure that transitionary housing support is available, including the wraparound support often needed for people with additional needs that lead them to be living on the streets. It is also the case, Mr. Speaker, that in addition to those social supports available for people, some people behave in ways that are obnoxious and upset the peace of others, and our government will take action to address that.
Supplementary. Does he agree with Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour, who said, quote, "Things have to be practical, they have to work. So if you ban homelessness, where do people actually go? You're better to actually build houses, engage community housing providers, get people a place to go. That's what actually works," end quote.
Mr. Speaker, yes, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Supplementary. How many of the 300 housing first places he announced in September have been filled?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister, I don't have that figure with me, but I'll be happy to furnish it to the member in the appropriate way.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order, the Honourable Kieran McAnulty.
While I fully accept that it is a government's right to allocate whichever minister it chooses in the absence of the responsible minister, we have a situation here today where we have a minister who is responsible for social housing, who was part of the announcement that I have just referred to. And normal practice would assume that if the housing minister is away, that the associate housing minister would stand in their stead, so that you can avoid the situation that we're in now, where a minister is answering on behalf of a minister is unable to answer a simple question which the minister who has the associate delegation would have been able to answer. And it seems, sir, that this tactic, if not monitored, could be used to avoid answering questions in future. And to your point earlier this week, sir, this is election year, so we want to be conscious of these things.
Yes, that's right. I am conscious of that, and that's. But if you look at it, firstly, your first point was that it's the government who decides who is most capable of answering a question. The question you did ask was relatively specific, and there was an indication that the answer would be provided through a different means. And I think I can't do more than just that. Have you got a supplementary question?
No, a point of order. Speaking to the point of order.
The Honourable Louise Upston.
Just speaking to the point of order, the primary question was incredibly broad. So there was nothing specific in the primary that indicated the line of questioning.
I'm well aware of that. I've just ruled on it. The Honourable Kieran McAnulty.
Sir, will he accept that with only half of the places he announced in September actually being filled, and the number of homeless in Auckland far exceeding that number and continuing to grow, that move-on orders aren't about addressing homelessness, just trying to look like they are?
Mr. Speaker, I won't accept that But what I will say is that the government has funded a number of housing places so that people who are without homes are able to get appropriate housing. And we do encourage and have been working hard behind the scenes with community housing providers to ensure that they take all steps necessary to fill those places, which is to say, Mr. Speaker, that if there are people who are homeless, there are housing places available for them. The member has actually highlighted this point by highlighting that we are funding housing places right now that are available for people who are on the street should they connect with them.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order, the Honourable Kira McAnulty.
Now, I accept that the Minister, by her own admission, is not fully on top of this issue, and fair enough. She's answering on behalf of, and she's not got the associate delegation. But she has just made a comment that is factually incorrect and has been shown through previous questions to the actual Associate Minister of Housing that is not the case. I would like to give her the opportunity to correct that now rather than going through a privileges process.
Well, I can't judge whether or not the Minister should or should not have known something. That's not the role of the Speaker. An answer was given. If you're not happy with that answer, use other remedies. Tamatha Paul.
Is the Minister aware that move-on orders could lead to incarcerating homeless people, which would cost around $200,000 per year, which is far more expensive than actually housing people?
On behalf of the Minister for Housing, Mr. Speaker, it is always the case that putting people in prison comes with a significant cost to the Crown. It is also the case that people committing crime against other New Zealanders comes at a considerable cost. And we on this side of the House are happy to be on the side of law and order.
Supplementary, Close Corbett.
When, if ever, will government ministers respond to my letter from last year, inviting them to walk the streets of Auckland Central to meet the people, including the children, who their government policies have made homeless?
On behalf of the Minister of Housing, I do walk the streets of Auckland reasonably regularly, as do my colleagues.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
Can the Minister confirm that
Just a moment. All questions are heard in silence.
Can the Minister confirm that government ministers are capable of walking the streets of Auckland and do on many occasions without the assistance of the member for whatever it is, Auckland Central?
On behalf of the Minister of Housing, yes.
Question number 6, Todd Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his government statements and actions?
The Honourable
Mr. Speaker,
David Seymour.
On behalf of the Prime Minister, yes, particularly our continued drive to make careful use of taxpayer money. It's long been said that monetary policy needs friends, and monetary policy in New Zealand finally has a friend in this government. By keeping tight spending allowances and driving for efficiency to get more out of less with government services, we've been able to keep standards up while also taking pressure off inflation, which has halved, and interest rates, which have also halved. And we saw just yesterday the Reserve Bank Governor suggest that relatively low mortgage rates will remain, to use her word, accommodative for some time. We're not only making careful use of money, also cutting red tape to make life more affordable. And just today, I saw 3 small examples that are significant to New Zealanders from ministers in this government. Nicole McKee allowing clubs, such as RSAs, to apply for on licences so that more people can access good times in an affordable setting. And Brooke Van Velden making it possible to charge EVs and run amusements for children, all of the things that make life better and more affordable by cutting red tape through this government.
Supplementary. What is the government doing to reduce the size of government?
Well, Mr. Speaker, Just today, the government has introduced legislation to be debated later on, and that legislation will take 4 ministries and merge them into one, with one minister, one coherent purpose, one budget and one set of accountability to make sure that we build the pipes and the pumping stations and the infrastructure to connect homes together for the next generation. That is the sort of reorganisation that I believe's time has come, and that governments in the future should do much more of as they seek to be smaller and more efficient to serve New Zealanders.
Supplementary. Does a smaller government mean New Zealanders will get less out of their government?
Mr. Speaker, the answer on behalf of the Prime Minister is no. I'm hearing people on the other side say yes, and that is because they have a mentality that the only way to solve a problem is to throw more money at it. They think that aroha comes from spending more taxpayers' money and borrowing off future taxpayers. We know on this side of the House that if we really love the next generation, then we will have a smaller, more efficient government that delivers the public services New Zealanders require without believing that borrowing and spending more money is the only way to achieve results. We know what happens when we do that, and that's why New Zealanders will be asking themselves, why put it all at risk this November?
Supplementary. What actions has the government taken to take the pressure off rental costs?
Well, Mr. Speaker, many things. I mentioned earlier that we have been careful with our own spending so that mortgage rates can fall. They've halved under this government, and that means that we now see less pressure on rents because many landlords are trying to service mortgages. We've also made mortgage interest a deductible expense for people renting out homes, and that has put downward pressure on rents, which have fallen in many cases. We've also simplified the Residential Tenancies Act so that a landlord can take a chance on a tenant and offer them a place to live, and knowing they can get out of the relationship if it goes wrong. Those 3 changes, Mr. Speaker, have made it better to be a tenant in this country, and we're very proud of what we've done to make renting more affordable as a government.
So, a point of order. The Honourable Chloe Swarbrick.
Speaker, the Minister may wish to revise his answer to that question just now, because I believe that potentially he may be in violation of Speaker's ruling 418B, that is misleading the House. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever, in fact evidence to the contrary, both from Treasury and from the Reserve Bank, that the government's decisions around the likes of the Brightline test put upward pressure on house prices, and in fact the reason that they are falling is because of the record number of New Zealanders leaving.
No, sorry. That is, with all due respect, excuse me, that is not a point of order, it's a debating point, and members should be careful about raising those things. You cannot invite someone to correct themselves. There's a process for that. The supplementary, the Honourable Megan Woods.
Thank you. Does he agree with David Seymour that the government is, quote, open to the possibility, unquote, of abandoning the LNG gas tax because people are concerned that their, quote, power bills adds up higher, unquote, as a result?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, I find David Seymour very agreeable and a great person to agree with. Sadly, in this case, I happen to have some insight that he didn't exactly make that quote.
Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Megan Wood.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table a transcript with David Seymour on Heather du Plessis-Allen's show on February the 18th, where he is quoted as saying this.
Well, that's fine. It's publicly available.
No, it's not publicly available. It's a transcript.
Sorry.
It's a transcript
Just a moment.
of the interview.
Just a moment. I don't think... well, look, the House can make up its mind. Well, it's unusual. No, it wasn't a point of order. She was seeking leave. Just, Mr. Peters, please. Sit down. The member was seeking leave.
To recite a quote which, if it had any veracity, should have been part and attached to the question in the first place.
Sorry.
It's not what I was doing.
Leave aside. Is there any objection to that course of action?
Supplementary.
Excuse me. Mr. Jackson, are being pushed to take a hard line on high standards.
Point of order, sir.
Yeah.
Now, it's quite clear.
Point of order.
Point of order.
The Honourable Kieran McAnulty.
It's quite clear that Willie Jackson is now on a warning that if he interrupts you again, that he'll be sent out.
No, it's not. No, please don't.
Oh, so he can carry on. The point is, sir.
No, sorry.
No.
The member is going to trifle with the chair if he carries on with that. Make up your own mind. Right?
Point of order, sir.
Okay. It better be a very clear point of order.
It is a point of order because I'm concerned that just by that statement it's quite clear that you're saying that if I trifle with you again that I will leave, but you won't even require someone making a racist comment to withdraw and apologise.
You are, well, the member will leave the House. Yeah, keep saying it.
Thank you. Thank you,
Just
Mr.
a moment.
Speaker.
That's all right. Look, here's the deal. I ruled on something today. This side of the House challenged that significantly. Everyone knows that's not what's supposed to happen. Second thing is, during that exchange there, when a question had started, there was a lot of conversation from this House being led by one member in particular. I pointed it out. Everyone knows that's not the way the House functions, and somehow that's exercising a double standard. That's also an attack on the House, and if people want to keep on sitting there saying, yes, that's the case, they can go and join them. In the meantime, we'll have the supplementary question from Todd Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by the creation of the Ministry for Regulation?
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, absolutely, and how could you not, when it has demonstrated savings for Kiwis that far exceed the cost of the ministry itself, and one estimate by a ratio of $16 of extra economic activity for every $1 it costs to cut red tape. Whether you're trying to bake cakes, build a garden shed, run a hairdresser, a daycare, grow hemp, or even just get probate for a will, the interventions of the Ministry for Regulation are cutting away the red tape that makes life unaffordable for New Zealanders, and we're having a great deal of fun doing it. In stark contrast, there is the opposition who have wasted almost an hour of the public's time today with pointless out-of-order points of order. That's why we're proud to be on this side.
Seymour. Mr. Seymour, that is completely unacceptable, entirely unhelpful, and that'll be the end of that question. Question number 7, Sam Uffindale.
Mr. Speaker, my question is...
Sorry, the next person who speaks while a question is being asked will be leaving.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health. What recent announcements has he made about enabling 12-month prescriptions for patients?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Simeon Brown.
Mr. Speaker, our government is focused on making a real difference for patients. That's why from the 1st of February this year, New Zealanders with stable long-term conditions can now receive prescriptions for up to 12 months. This common sense solution will help patients with conditions such as asthma, diabetes, epilepsy, high blood pressure by reducing their need to renew prescriptions every 3 months. This change reduces costs for patients that need repeat prescriptions, improves access to medicines and frees up valuable GP time for those who need appointments.
Supplementary. How will this change benefit patients with long-term conditions?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are making the system work better for the patients it serves. For those managing stable, ongoing conditions, this change will mean fewer trips to the doctor just to renew a routine prescription and fewer prescription charges over the year. Patients will continue to collect their repeats from the pharmacy as usual, but will no longer need to return to their doctor each time for a new script. This is expected to save patients up to $120 per year for those who receive 12-month prescriptions. This is a practical, patient-focused change.
Supplementary. What benefits will this have for access to primary care?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is a win-win for both patients and health professionals. This gives doctors and prescribers the ability to prescribe for up to 12 months for stable, ongoing conditions, reducing the burden on GPs and other prescribers who currently spend time issuing repeat prescriptions every 3 months. This initiative will free up appointments for patients with more immediate or complex needs. This policy isn't just about expanding prescription lengths, it's also about using our health workforce more efficiently to improve timely access to care and ensure patients can see a clinician when they need to.
Supplementary. What other steps has the government taken to improve access to medicines?
Well, Mr. Speaker, in addition to 12-month prescriptions, we've also increased prescribing rights for health professionals such as nurse practitioners, enabling them to prescribe a wider range of medicines within the area of practice. And we've progressed practical changes to strengthen the pharmacy workforce by removing ownership restrictions that limited pharmacist prescribers from prescribing if they owned or held an interest in a pharmacy. Together, these patient-focused changes will ensure New Zealanders have quicker, easier and more affordable access to the care and medicines they need, and it's all part of our plan to fix the basics and build the future for a more patient-focused health system.
Question number 8, Lemonga Lydia Sassini.
Aotearoa, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Internal Affairs, is she confident that Fire and Emergency New Zealand is doing everything it can to ensure firefighters are receiving a fair deal? If so, why?
The Honourable Brooke Van Velden.
Mr. Speaker, yes. I understand Fire and Emergencies leadership have sought an agreement with the New Zealand Professional Firefighters Union that complies with the government's workforce policy statement, is affordable and doesn't increase cost of living for Kiwis. I am advised that the NZPFU's most recent settlement proposal was more than 3 times higher than Fire and Emergency's last offer, which they believed was fair, sustainable and reasonable, and in line with other settlements across the public service. Facilitated bargaining with the Employment Relations Authority is underway at the request of Fire and Emergency, as they believe the ERA gives them the best chance of coming to a positive, sustainable outcome and introduce some realism into discussions. That process continues, and as it is an independent process, it is not appropriate that I comment too much further.
Supplementary. How can she be confident when firefighters are striking twice a week?
Mr. Speaker, industrial action that puts the community at risk doesn't help to get trucks fixed or build new ones or make any settlements. Fire and Emergency have been in bargaining with the PFU for 583 days. They have been willing to be at the table. Striking doesn't help settle any faster.
Supplementary. Is she concerned that her cuts of $50 million a year have led to a situation where FENZ cannot make the investments in staff and equipment they need to keep firefighters safe, resulting in this strike?
Mr. Speaker, absolutely I refute that. What I would say, though, is that when ministers get personally involved in collective bargaining, as previous ministers of internal affairs have done, it hasn't led to better outcomes. And let me tell the members of the public who'll be listening what happens when former ministers of internal affairs have gotten involved. There was a 24% pay increase in the 2022 agreement with the PFU, which required a Crown loan of $75 million, which Fire and Emergency is still trying to pay back, and has paid over $5 million just in interest costs on that loan, which is being paid for by people out there in our community as levy payers. This is a government that is looking at how we can constrain the fiscal environment and have a fair outcome for the professional firefighters as well as the people who pay their wages.
Supplementary. Can the Minister name any other profession where workers must strike to get the basic equipment they need to do their jobs safely?
No, and the PFU doesn't need to.
Supplementary. How can Kiwis have confidence that firefighters will be able to turn up when they need them, when they are dealing with basic equipment failures that prevent them from doing their jobs safely?
Mr. Speaker, all New Zealanders do want to have confidence that the right resources will arrive quickly to an incident, and that is what Fire and Emergency seeks to uphold. Whenever we have a fleet of around 1,300 trucks, there is always going to be a maintenance issue, but Fire and Emergency give me assurance that when they have a networked approach, which is what they do, they respond to incidences with backup trucks and backup crews available to respond as required. So a breakdown doesn't mean that no one is coming. And I would caution the member attempting to try and create any perception for members of the public that there is unsafety because of Fire and Emergency's leadership. What is unsafe is the PFU striking when Fire and Emergency as a leadership team are ready to be around that bargaining table, because it's already been 583 days of willingness from this side.
Question number 9, Rima Nakli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Education and asks, what announcement has she made regarding school property?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Erica Stanford.
Mr. Speaker, last week I attended the opening of a brand new primary school in Takanini. Te Kura Rau Iti has the capacity for 700 students to support role growth in the fast-growing suburb of Flatbush. The school was built in under 18 months and came in below budget following our inquiry into school property and a subsequent value for money exercise. It cost $41 million, almost half the previous build cost, estimated to be $76.5 million, projected in 2023. And not only did we build the school for $41 million, saving $35 million, we also delivered an extra 100 student places for that price. No open plan classrooms, no expensive unnecessary bespoke designs, just getting on with the job and delivering warm, safe, dry classrooms for our kids.
Supplementary. How has the government been able to deliver this?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the delivery of the school on time and under budget proves that our government's approach to school property delivery is working. We undertook an inquiry into school property, appointed a ministerial advisory group to bring commercial oversight to school property. We've driven a focus in the ministry on moving away from bespoke, expensive, architecturally designed buildings. We're using off-site manufacturing with standardised, repeatable quality designs and layouts. Through these changes, we've been able to halve the cost of building a classroom so that we can deliver more classrooms faster and at a lower cost, and that's what delivery looks like.
Supplementary. What else has she announced on school property?
Mr. Speaker, for the first time in 50 years, we're building 2 new specialist day schools to support children with high and complex additional learning needs. One is in Palmerston North, where there is no provision for 72 kilometres, and the other in South Auckland, where the waitlists are just not keeping up. Over the last 2 budgets, we've ring-fenced money for specialist education and property, including funding 50 new specialist satellite classrooms and the redevelopment of 4 specialist schools. Learning support is a huge priority for this government, and that includes empowering parents to make the choice that is best for their children.
Supplementary. How have schools been supported with their maintenance work?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as well as building more classrooms than ever before, this government is focused on maintaining the schools and classrooms that we have. Budget 2024 uplift of $780 million in depreciation funding for school property maintenance was almost double the previous 6 years. We helped to get maintenance work underway over the summer break with $58 million package for schools to help their painting, repairs and other minor fixes. We increased the 5YA funding for schools for 50% for the first time since 2010 to help schools with planned upgrades, modernising and replacement of existing school buildings. And we're completing work to support improvements in school property for 934 isolated small and rural schools. This work also means more jobs for our tradies, which is all contributing to economic growth.
Question, supplementary question, Dr. Lawrence Yunnan.
What plans does the Minister have to address the Ministry of Education's assessment identifying 1,000
102 schools and kura about 44% of all schools as potentially exposed to coastal, surface or river flooding, and 106 schools as vulnerable to coastal flooding or landslides.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education for the first time are putting in place 10-year property plans. It is the first time that the Ministry of Education has done this to take into account a range of different issues so that we can make really good budget decisions every single year, taking all of these things into consideration.
Will the Minister ensure that financial support will be available for schools to address climate change weather-related damages, or does the Minister expect schools to pay for the damages out of their own operational fund?
Well, Mr. Speaker, with recent weather events that have impacted schools, of course, insurance for the most part covers those damages, but the Ministry of Education always comes to the party where we need to.
Question number 10, Shannon Halbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question to the Minister for Universities. Does he think that the current student loan levels are sufficient to allow students to focus on their studies? If so, why?
The Honourable Erica Stamford.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister, the Government expects that the costs of study to be shared between learners, for example, through part-time work or summer jobs, their families and the Government, and this has been a long-held position. Since 2005, there has been an inflationary adjustment every year through multiple governments designed to account for annual inflationary changes.
Supplementary. How can students get by when the student loan living costs increased by 2.2%, but the cost of food is up 4.6% in the last year, and energy is up 18% since the election?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I have already outlined, the annual calculation to those increases have been almost exactly the same since 2005. There have been a couple of adjustments, but for the most part, they have been the same. I would like to point out, Mr. Speaker, that in 2022, when the CPI was running at 7.22% and food inflation was running at over 12%, it was really tough for students. But this government has driven down the cost of living. We've got inflation under control. Rents are flat to falling, Mr. Speaker. And if that member was so concerned about the calculations, then why wasn't he doing anything about it in 2022?
Shannon Halbert.
Thank you, Mr. Supplementary. In what ways has this government driven down the cost of living for university students?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've just mentioned, if you compared the stats to a few years ago, they're much better than they were. But one example, Mr. Speaker, One example, Mr. Speaker, of course, is rents, driven up under the previous government by $150 are now flat to falling, and in places like Auckland and Wellington, significantly falling.
Supplementary. Does he think eating, paying rent and having electricity are optional luxuries for students?
Mr. Speaker, as I said in my primary question, the costs for students fall on three parties. It has been a long-held position. They fall on students, their families, and on the government. And it's up to students to make sure they're making use of the student loan scheme, as well as looking after some of their costs through part-time work, either during term time or during their summer jobs, and also with support from their families.
Supplementary. Why is his solution just for students to work on top of their studies when his government has also made it harder for students to even find a job?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the outlook, according to Treasury, was much worse than it actually has been. This government has been working really hard to make sure that there are opportunities available for New Zealanders. We have been working hard to make sure that we're driving investment into this country. We're making sure that we are driving down the cost of borrowing so that companies can expand and create more jobs. Mr. Speaker, the outlook for students compared to just a few years ago is a lot better than it was.
Question number 11, Miles Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Tourism and Hospitality. What recent progress has she seen on tourism and major events in New Zealand?
The Honourable Louise Upston.
Mr Speaker, new data released by Stats NZ last week showed international visitor arrivals reached 3.51 million in the year to December 2025, putting us at 90% of pre-COVID levels. This is the first annual period to exceed 3.5 million overseas visitor arrivals since March 2020 year, meaning tourism levels are now at their highest since December 2019. Visitor arrivals from Australia reached 1.52 million in the year to December 2025, an increase of 10% on the previous year, while arrivals from China were up 29% over the same period. Growing tourism is a key part of our plan to fix the basics and build the future. This progress shows that our plan is working.
Supplementary. What progress has she seen in the business events sector?
Mr Speaker, last week the New Zealand International Convention Centre was officially opened. This world-class venue is estimated to bring in 33,000 international conference visitors who would not otherwise come to New Zealand, contributing $90 million of new spending annually. And new research from business events industry Aotearoa also shows that multi-day conferences delivered $925 million in economic and productivity contribution in 2025. This was before the opening of the NZICC last week, so I'm really excited to see where we go from here, with more than 120 events having already been confirmed for NZICC in 2026. The strong pipeline of events means more visitors to New Zealand, more economic activity, more jobs and more opportunities for Kiwis.
Supplementary. How are recent visa changes impacting visitor numbers?
Mr Speaker, changes that allow eligible visitors from China and the Pacific to travel to New Zealand from Australia with a New Zealand Electronic Travel Authority or an NZETA rather than a visa are also making a difference. To date, we've seen over 36,000 additional arrivals from China travelling through this pathway. With average visitor spend of $5,800 for Chinese visitors, that amounts to an estimated economic injection of $210 million for Kiwi businesses for those visitors. A new survey following these changes shows being able to travel with an NZETA was a deciding factor in people's decisions to visit New Zealand. 85% of respondents have said they travelled to New Zealand specifically because of the NZETA option becoming available. And I'm proud to have worked with my colleague, the Honourable Erica Stanford, on this.
Supplementary. What feedback has she seen on the progress on tourism and major events?
Mr Speaker, we've received a range of positive feedback on our progress to date. Tourism Industry Aotearoa Chief Executive Rebecca Ingram says forward bookings are looking positive and the industry has real momentum. She attributed that to the government's tourism focus and investments, targeted marketing from Tourism New Zealand, changes in visa settings and new and exciting changes on the horizon. James Doolan from Hotel Council Aotearoa said central government's increased investment in event attraction and destination marketing has allowed private businesses to invest in their assets. Mr Speaker, tourism is critical to our economy and our investments will help to deliver lasting benefits for communities and businesses from one end of New Zealand to the other.
Question number 12, Hana Rafiki Mapi-Clark.
Tēnā rā koe te puka. To the Minister for Emergency Management and Recovery, does he agree with the Prime Minister that, quote, iwi and marae are very good at emergency management? They don't just stand up for iwi, they stand up for the entire community, end quote.
The Honourable Mark
Mr Speaker, I definitely agree with that statement from the Prime Minister. That has, without a doubt, been my experience since I've been Minister for Emergency Management.
Supplementary. Will the $1 million Marae Emergency Response Fund be enough to cope with the increased frequency of climate-related distresses in Aotearoa?
Well, it's money that we put immediately into TPK because especially over the last couple of months, you would have seen that we've had lots of events to deal with. Local Maori and iwi have stood up, maraes have been opened, and what happens is that they'll have a stockpile of goods there to sort of support the community, the broader, wider community. But then they have to go through a big sort of bureaucratic process to replenish that. And so what we've done is, with meetings with the Prime Minister getting around the country, is that we have tried to remove some of that red tape to make it much easier for marae to replenish those stocks. And we also put an additional $1 million in there, which has actually gone out to most of the marae now that have been providing that support.
Supplementary. Does he stand by the government's decision to cut $23 million from the Climate Emergency Response Fund that was intended to help Hapori Māori deal with climate change adaptation and resilience?
Well, that's not my portfolio area, but what I would say in terms of our readiness, our response and our recovery as a country is that we've made hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, particularly into marae in Tairāwhiti and the Hawke's Bay. We continue to have conversation with iwi leaders. We just had a very good session of meetings up at Waitangi on how we continue to make sure that, number one, marae are in the right place and are not exposed to flooding, and number two, making sure that they are supported and they're ready to be able to respond to these weather events.
Supplementary. Will he commit to ongoing funding to support marae in responding to emergencies and to improve climate change adaptation and resilience for Hapori Māori?
Yes, the iwi are an extremely important partner for government in all, both readiness, response and recovery, and also in the reduction work and the mitigation work. And I could get into a lot of detail around that because there's a significant amount of money and work being done around the country with the local iwi on mitigation work. And of course we've got the legislation now, the emergency management legislation in front of the Select Committee. I want to acknowledge all the members in this House from every party that's worked really hard to get that into good shape, because it's important for us as a country to have that as a launching pad for us in terms of how we deal with these emergencies. And as part of that, I actually codified and made sure that Maori now have got a seat at what we call our coordinating executive group, and that is the senior executive group that works together to make plans and to be fully involved in how we respond to these weather events.
That concludes oral questions. I call on Government Order today number 1.
Environment, disestablishment of the Ministry for the Environment Amendment Bill, first reading.
The Honourable Penny Simmons. The Honourable Tama Potaka.
I present a legislative statement on the Environment, disestablishment of Ministry for the Environment Amendment Bill.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the public website.
I move that the Environment Disestablishment of Ministry for the Environment Amendment Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Environment Committee to consider the bill at the appropriate time. I intend to move that the bill be reported to the House by 24 April 2026. Mr Speaker, e te māngai te whare, MCERT brings together... Mr Speaker, I move the Environment Amendment Bill to be read for the first time. This bill will allow for the creation of the new Ministry for Cities, Environment,